born in Iran, Tehran, Iran, in 1980. So I was born in kind of during the Iran-Iraq War after the revolution. And in 1984, my family decided things weren't looking better, and so they moved to Nashville, Tennessee, of all places. So
it's a big change.
Big change. From, I think Tehran was like 6 million people at the time, and we moved actually to Brentwood, which is just south of Nashville, which was maybe like, I don't know, 6 people.
Yeah.
So my mom was like, "What are you doing?" But it was the right move. So we went from a kind of a war-torn environment where there would be rockets hovering over our head, and I remember hearing the sirens, and we'd have to run down to the basement, to a very quiet town. And that shaped a lot of who I was for a number of reasons. One, I grew up in the American South in the 80s, which was a pretty awesome place to grow up.
Yeah.
2, I grew up with a lot of extended family around me, so it wasn't just that we moved, everyone moved. So I grew up with aunts, uncles, cousins, and we would spend a lot of our time away from school together, right? So you'd like go to school, do your American life, and then you'd come home and you'd be put at your aunt's house, and we just grew up like that. And then it was also important because I was close to here.
Right.
To driving down to Huntsville, my family would drive down, once a year or so, and we'd check out the rockets, we'd do the rides.
Yeah.
And I think that was integral because all of a sudden I realized that space was different, that the skies were different, right? It wasn't just for missiles coming at me. We could also launch the missiles with me far away, which was pretty cool.
How old were you when you came here?
I think I was about 6 the first time I came down. And, I have pictures from when I was little, but not quite 6 when I was down here. And so, I think that sparked the dream. And that was the shuttle era, which for any of us who grew up in the shuttle era, we were seeing a lot of launches. It was kind of a workhorse for the space program. And you'd have these classes that were also much bigger, where you'd have, 20 people picked up. And I didn't really think it was realistic for me to be an astronaut, but I was thinking that it was pretty cool thing for people to do.
Yeah. Did you attend space camp?
I didn't. So I wanted to, and my brother and I both applied for scholarships to come here, but unfortunately didn't get it.
Right.
As an immigrant family at that time, we didn't have a lot of the expendable cash to be able to participate. Now, when I was older, as soon as my son turned 6, I brought him down for family space camp. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, so I made my way here, but just, 40 years later.
What was that like, getting to do it as an adult with your own kid?
I mean, it was incredible. I'm sure that if I had been down here as a teenager with a bunch of other teenagers, it would have been a different experience. But being able to watch my son be in the mission control room, where we both, we flew the shuttle together, and watching him go through all of the procedures was very cool. I mean, you could just see his eyes light up.
Yeah.
And he still fondly looks at it. Actually, this morning we were talking, and he said, "We should go back to space camp." And I was like, "Well, no, you should go with your mom." So I think we're going to set him up for the summer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Does he want to do, is he thinking about some sort of career in that field, in space?
I wish. So, even before I went to space, I asked him, I'm like, "Would you want to go up?" And he's like, "Absolutely not." He's like, "I have no desire to get on a rocket." He is the kid in the tribe who says, maybe we shouldn't do that. The more cautious one that keeps everyone alive.
Yeah.
I do suspect he'll do something in STEM, but whether it's aerospace, I don't know. Now, my daughter, who's 3.5, she keeps telling me the two of us are going to go fly together. So give her about 20 years and we'll do that.
Yeah. Well, when you were a kid and you were coming here every so often with your family, did you have thoughts of like, did you want to become an astronaut? Was that kind of the thinking at the time?
Absolutely. I think most kids growing up, particularly in the 80s and 90s, wanted to be an astronaut. And even as I went into high school, I used to work at the Adventure Science Center, which is a science museum up in Nashville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And they had a Mission to Mars exhibit, one of these traveling exhibits come through. And so to me, that was like, it was like coming down here, but even better because I could work it, right? So I got to wear a spacesuit. I got to spend time like near the rover that they had back then. And so all throughout that time, I wanted to be an astronaut. It just didn't seem like there was a clear path to becoming an astronaut. So the other thing I always dreamed of doing was becoming a doctor, which, like an astronaut requires a lot of work.
Yep. You
have to be in some sort of STEM field for the most part. At least that's helpful. You can be a teacher and be an astronaut, which I think is very cool, but it required some understanding of science. And I was like, okay, I could be a doctor. Like I see doctors around me in my community. My father was a radiologist in Iran, so I had the lineage of like understanding what it took. And then my parents could guide me. Okay, if you want to be a doctor, you have to do X, Y, Z. I don't think my parents in a million years would think that I would be the first Iranian man to go to space. Like that was not in their wheelhouse. And, my grandmother, who passed away last year, she was 94. She said, now I know why God kept me alive so long so I could see you go to space. Because to her, she was a woman who in her hometown in Iran, we're from Tabriz, Iran, which is kind of northwest. She was the first woman to drive a car in that town in like the 1950s or whatever, 40s. And to see me go to space was just like, I think for her, a full circle moment of like the incredible things that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What'd that feel like for you when she said that?
It was very, very emotional because ever since my grandfather had passed away years before, she was, I think, wondering what she was still doing here. And there were days where, her body was not as strong as she would like. So I think she realized that was part of her purpose, was to be able to see that. So it was pretty incredible to have her be able to witness that.
Yeah. Yeah. How old were you when you kind of started thinking, all right, the doctoring is the route that I want to take?
Yeah. So as I said, I'd always been surrounded with my father as a physician, but my grandfather actually had a stroke when I was quite young. So he had heart surgery, and after his surgery, had a massive stroke. Couldn't speak, couldn't use the left side of his body well. So it went from someone who is a pharmacist, a professor, a poet, to not being able to communicate, which was terrifying, quite honestly. So I think that was the first big nudge of like, I want to help people and prevent this from happening. And so from that day, I just kind of, I think, pushed forward with working towards that goal, making sure I was taking the science classes in school, shadowing doctors. The first cadaver I ever saw was up in Nashville at Meharry Medical College when I was like maybe 16. So
wow.
So that was pretty cool, and just pursued it full-heartedly.
So where did you end up going to college?
I was at George Washington University up in Washington, D.C., and when I went in, it was with the premise of becoming a doctor. So I always knew I wanted to do that. So I initially was majoring in biology. But then I also found that I was interested in other things. And so before I graduated, I actually pivoted and got a Bachelor's of Arts in Religion.
Okay.
So that was my degree, which people are like, well, how does that go hand in hand with medicine? In my mind, it does, because so much of what you do as a physician has to be from like a humanities standpoint and those interconnections. So if you can understand where someone's coming from a standpoint of faith, you can help guide them, through difficult decisions. Like, do you need surgery? Are we going to cut life support on your loved one?
Right.
Things like that. So, so I ended up being a Bachelor of Arts major, but getting into medical school and going to University of Tennessee for that.
Okay. At some point, you ended up then at Vanderbilt, right?
I did. So, when you become a doctor, there's multiple steps of training. So you go to college, you go to medical school, and then you have to train afterwards. So I ended up in Boston University for residency, and I did internal medicine there. And then I wanted to come back home. So I came to Vanderbilt University, where I did my cardiology training and also got a master's in public health.
Okay. Why cardiology?
Honestly, I think it goes back to my grandfather. So I wanted to be in a field where I felt like I could take care of both really sick patients, so people having heart surgeries, people having heart attacks, but also develop long relationships with people, kind of like primary care. In primary care, you have your doctor, and hopefully you have them for 20 years. So with cardiology, I knew that I could do both that outpatient piece and that procedural acute care kind of part of it. Yeah. But also it went back to probably my first biggest encounter with medicine was with my grandfather having a stroke. And as a cardiologist, I'm constantly advising people about taking blood thinners and what we can do to kind of decrease your risk of stroke. So it was a natural fit. Also, I think like anything, you find your people, right? So as you're trying to find your career, definitely dermatologists act different than radiologists, who act different than cardiologists. And cardiology is where I just kind of found my people.
Yeah. What makes a cardiologist different than some of those other fields?
Oh, man. That's a loaded question. One, I think if you decide to be a cardiologist, you don't mind being woken up at night.
Sure.
I don't know how many dermatologists want to be called at 2 a.m. for like a emergency skin
Yeah.
reaction. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. And it just depends on how you like to interact with people. Radiologists or pathologists typically are perfectly fine not dealing with patients on a regular basis because they're sitting
Reading charts,
looking at a scope, reading an x-ray. So there's some of that. If you look at surgeons, people like, your general surgeon or your orthopedic surgeon, they want to be in the OR fixing things. And so it's just, you just find the people. Yeah.
Okay. So as you were becoming a doctor, at some point, these interests in space returned. Assuming they didn't really leave, but the desire to kind of reinsert yourself into the space. How did that come about?
So I was graduating medical school, so this was 2005. I'd finally achieved that big dream, which was I want to be a doctor. Right? I still had 7 years of training ahead of me, but I was going to have that title. And we were down at Kennedy Space Center. So again, the importance of these space centers, both here in Huntsville and then the Kennedy one. And
so you're still taking like your family to
vacations? This is spring break. Yeah, we're going on. We went down to Florida and we just decided to go to Kennedy Space Center. I was standing there and I was looking at the rockets, at that rocket park. And I was like, man, I really still want to do this. I want to be an astronaut, which is a crazy idea. Yeah. Especially as like a 25-year-old man who just graduated medical school. So I go back to the hotel because this is before cell phones were so all encompassing. And I looked up qualifications to be an astronaut. And sure enough, by being a doctor, you qualify to be an astronaut. Yeah. So for any of the doctors out there,
those qualifications changed a lot at post-shuttle.
Yeah. So I think what happened is in the interim of this was the end of the shuttle era. I think the last shuttle flight was in 2011. So this was 2005. And what had happened is, they'd had the teacher program, they had the military program, and then they had the kind of scientist program. And for that, you can look up these, qualifications online, but there are things like just having a master's degree or a doctoral degree and having some qualifications where you've done expertise work in science. So I was like, oh, all right, I'm qualified. But I couldn't apply right then. So then it was on my radar, and I waited, and in 2008, it might have been 2007, but the call went out for astronauts. So NASA was finally accepting astronaut candidates, and I said, you know what, I'm going to apply. And I remember I called my brother, and he'll tell you this, and my brother is both my biggest supporter, but also the one who's like, I think that's a bad idea, nothing's going to happen. I said, I'm going to apply to NASA to be an astronaut. And he's like, well, that's not really smart idea. What do you mean you're going to apply to they're not going to pick you. I was like, that's okay, I'm going to apply. So I took a couple hours, put the application together, submitted it. I didn't expect to get anywhere, right? This was just I'm going to put it in, they're going to say no, I'll get it out of my system.
Yeah, and if they say no, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're still not going to space.
Yeah, I'm still not going, and I still can be a doctor, plan B. But then and the way it works is you submit it, then you get an application, and then they call you to get an interview. So I got the secondary application. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I got called to get an interview. And I didn't expect that. That was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So that was about 120 people got that from, I think it was 3,700 applicants at the time. And so I went and I interviewed. And I thought that was cool. I got to spend a week at space camp, but with NASA paying for it down in Houston, which is where they did the interviews. And I got to do all the check out where they train, go to the natural buoyancy lab, hang out with astronauts. It was a pretty cool week.
So the interview is more than just an interview. They actually, it's a whole experience.
Oh, it's a whole experience. Yeah. The first round is typically 3 days. There's a variety of things they do. Some of them is, testing, like paper testing.
Right.
Some of it is physical problem solving. And then there's an actual interview. And the interview process is you at a table. There's probably about 20 seats. It's a big, long table. You're surrounded by all these very accomplished astronauts. And then around on the outside, there are more people taking notes. So there's probably 25 people in that room with you. And you have an hour. So I sat there and I did the interview. And once again, I was like, well, that was cool. Probably nothing coming of it. And then I got a finalist interview. So it went down to, I think, about 47 people. And I was like, all right, you know what? This might be something that can happen.
Yeah.
I didn't get picked up in 2008. That's okay. But I got very close. And that was really like, it went from being just a thought in my head to like, how can we get this done?
Yeah. Yeah, like it definitely confirms that like this is a possibility, an actual possibility.
Yeah, like someone at NASA thought that I was qualified enough to get me this far.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was cool. In 2013, I reapplied. So the thing with NASA is during the shuttle era, they had applications for astronauts about every 2 years, and the class sizes were big, 20, 25 people.
Right.
As the shuttle was retiring, which was in 2011, the class sizes got much smaller, like 6 to 8 people, and the time frame got longer, about 4 to 5 years between class selection. So 2013, it comes up again. I apply again, make it to the finals again. I thought for sure they were going to take me. I was like, look, we went on 2 dates.
Right.
Like, they brought me back. I'm meeting their mom. Like, we're good. Did not get picked up again. So that was more heartbreaking than the first one, because the first one was, I felt like a fluke, and I really didn't expect to get there. But the second one, to make it to the finals and not get picked up, I was like, I was pretty disheartened.
Yeah, the first time feels like just to celebrate that you got that far.
Yeah.
And then the second time it feels a little bit more like, oh, what did I do?
Yeah, how did I mess this up?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I've applied 3 more times. So I've applied to NASA 5 times. I'm still applying. You know, I just applied for the last selection process. But after the second time, I really haven't made it to the interview stage again. So going to like 2021, in 2021, I was applying for NASA again. And then I saw Jared Isaacman announce the Inspiration 4 missions.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty cool. Okay, commercial space is a real thing. Like, maybe there's a way to space that's not all NASA.
Right.
And so I started getting excited again. Then Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic started saying they're going to fly suborbital flights. I'm like, okay, there's options. And then I was driving home listening to the radio with my wife, and on NPR I hear Siam Proctor is going to be flying with Inspiration 4. Now, Dr. Siam Proctor is a good friend of mine from the 2008 finals at NASA. So we met as finalists at NASA, and neither of us got picked up. But here she was in 2021 going on an orbital flight, the first commercial space flight. So I looked at my wife. I'm like, okay, here we're back in. There's a way.
Somebody I know.
Somebody I know who we didn't know was going to go to space, and now she's going to go to space. So surely I can get this, find a way to space too.
Did you call her?
Oh, I called her. Yeah, absolutely. I called her. I said, what? And she's like, yeah, I couldn't tell anyone. I'm like, yeah, I understand. Yeah. So it was very cool to watch her launch into space. So I, was fortunate enough to go down to Florida to the Kennedy Space Center and watch her fly. And to me, that was as good as me going, because here was someone that, I truly care about, who we had supported each other since 2008, making her dreams come true. Yeah, which was very cool.
That's pretty awesome. So you're associated with an organization called Moon. Is it Moondow?
Moondow, yes, correct.
So when did the Moondow Association come about? Is that are we there in the story yet, or am I getting ahead?
We are coming into the story. No, you're not getting ahead. So 2021 rolls around. Now I see there's a way to space, but I don't know what that way is going to be, Jared Isaacman was very cool to sponsor Inspiration 4. At that point, we didn't know about the Polaristan missions. And so I started looking for any opportunity. And at that time was also, I don't know if you recall back in 2021, but it was kind of the boom of cryptocurrency.
Right.
And so there was a lot of groups sending someone to space. There was Space for Humanity, which is not crypto, but is a nonprofit, was sent up Katya, and then also sent up Sarah Sabri. So they ended up sending 2 people to space. I applied for that, right? There was a group called Space Plus, which was an NFT kind of based group, non-fungible token, that ended up sponsoring sending someone to space. They still haven't sent the person, but there was a competition, and I applied for that.
Right.
There was a group called Crypto Space Agency that is now rebranded as CIRA. And they sent Victor Vespena, they sent Victor up to space. And that was NS-21. And I actually went with them to watch the launch. So that was the first time I saw Blue Origin launch. And then, so all these groups are doing something. And I saw a group called Moondow pop up. And this was started by the same guys who, I don't know if you recall, they were trying to buy the Constitution. Does this ring a bell? There was a DAO. So what a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which is a a body of people that are using, basically they use the blockchain for any sort of transaction they want to make, vote, deal, and it's supposed to be decentralized, meaning no primary leader.
Right.
So it's not like he's the CEO and he's governing this. So there's a group of people who tried to buy the Constitution back in like 2020. And they raised a lot of money, but they didn't raise enough money to buy the Constitution. They raised something like, I don't know, it was millions of dollars. So when that kind of was dying down, Pablo was one of those individuals. He decided, hey, I wonder if we can crowdfund sending someone to space. And so they created MoonDAO, and they put a call out for donations in Ethereum and said, hey, send us money, we'll send someone to space. In the matter of a lunar cycle, so 28 days, they raised something close to $8 million in cryptocurrency.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And so they decided they could buy two seats. So the first person they sent up, they wanted to be an influencer. The community voted on that. And the community voted on Kobe Cotton, who's Dude Perfect, which people may know as they do YouTube trick shots.
Yeah.
So he flew up, and then they had actually selected a second person through a raffle.
Okay.
That individual was a Chinese national, and despite everything MoonDAO did, including talking to the embassy, trying to figure it out, after a year, they still couldn't get him approved to fly on a rocket because of ITAR. So there's certain regulations for security, national security, and so he couldn't fly. So now they had this second seat that they had to use for someone. So they actually restarted another competition, and this was maybe 2 or 3 years later. So throughout that whole time, I'm watching what's going on. And so they did another kind of drawing for this, and I put my name in, and I'm sitting there at the table with my son and my wife and my daughter, and they're doing the drawing, like 10, 9, 8. And the first person, number 1, gets the ticket, right? And number 4, my number comes up.
Oh.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt. Very upset. And my wife says, wait a minute. This is closer than you've been since your days interviewing at NASA.
Sure.
You just need 3 people to drop out. Like, what do you mean 3 people are going to drop out? So I don't know what happened, but the first 2 people I think were disqualified. And the third person, they were about to announce, MoonDAO was like, we're going to announce tonight who's going to fly. This is like a month later. And then all of a sudden, like an hour before the announcement, they cancel it.
Wow.
So I think that the person who won the ticket realized that, you'd be sitting on a rocket and there was a non-zero chance you could die.
Yeah.
And decided this is a crazy idea.
Just some cold feet.
Yeah, I don't want to do this. That I think if you ask, I talk to a lot of people, kids, adults. If I talk to a group of kids, I say, how many of you want to go to space?
Every hand.
Yeah.
Every hand.
99.9%. If I ask a group of adults, what do you think it is?
Yeah, it's probably 1.
Yeah, maybe 5%. So it's reasonable. I mean, most reasonable people aren't going to strap themselves to a rocket. So I remember they canceled that, and I looked at my wife. I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I'm going to get this. We go see the solar eclipse, the big one. Remember last year, totality. Yeah. So we drove up to Indiana. We watched it on Monday, and as we're driving back, Pablo from MoonDAO calls. He's like, hey, do you have time to talk? I'm like, yeah, when do you want to talk? He's like, well, let's do it. I want to do it more formally. Can we talk tomorrow? I'm like, sure. I'm like, I don't know. I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, I don't know, Amber. Maybe they're just inviting me a ticket to come see it because I was 4th. And I was like, that's cool. I'll go see the launch. So they call me and they tell me I got the ticket, which was nuts. I mean, because here I had been 20 years, really from 2005, trying to figure out how to get to space, and something that didn't even exist in 2005. Many things that didn't exist. We didn't have a new Shepard rocket, right? We didn't have really a commercial space industry, and we definitely didn't have a DAO. All kind of got together so that I could finally fulfill my dream of flying to space.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. I don't know. It's like life, you never know which way it's going to take you.
How'd you feel when
ecstatic.
Did he like butter you up for it, or did he just come right out and go, hey, you want to go?
He came right out. He's like, well, we've been working on this, and like, just want to let you know, you won the ticket. I have an audio recording of it. Luckily they recorded it on audio and sent it back to me. And so I jumped up and down, right? I couldn't believe it. And then as soon as we got off the phone, I FaceTimed my wife. There was a lot of ugly face tears on
Sure.
both ends. And then my brother is actually a physician and works. This was in between seeing patients. So it's like, I was like, I have this time. I'm going to go to my office. I'm going to take this call and I'm going to go back to seeing patients. But I called my brother. I'm like, hey, are you in your office? And he's like, yeah. And he works one floor below me. So I ran downstairs and he's like, what? I'm like, I'm going to space. He's like, what? And so we were jumping up and down. And then I had to compose myself, go back to work, tell someone they had high blood pressure and they really should be on medicine.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was cool. I mean, it was amazing. So you never know, I guess is my point. And you shouldn't close any doors because you don't understand something. Because I sure as heck did not understand what a Dow was.
Yeah. So they've bought tickets for you and this other the influencer. Obviously, you're not on the same flight, but who did they? Which commercial space program did they purchase seats for?
Yeah, so they had purchased 2 seats with Blue Origin to fly on their new Shepard rocket. And the original mission, I think, was to have both of them on the same flight. But because of the delay in that second ticket,
right.
Kobe Cotton flew maybe in 2022 or 2021. And then I ended up flying in August 2024. There was a gap where Blue Origin wasn't flying because one of their capsules, an uncrewed capsule, had an emergency escape activated, appropriately so. It did what it was supposed to do, but they had to do a full analysis before they felt comfortable putting humans on it again.
Okay. So how long was it between when you found out you were going to get to go and when you got to go?
Yeah, it's a great question. You would think most people have to wait a long time. And there were definitely individuals that have waited a long time to fly, particularly with that gap where they were doing the analysis. I found out in April. It was actually the most epic week of my life because, there was the eclipse, which was cool. That was Monday. Tuesday, I found out I was going to space. And then Friday, I met my childhood hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it was an epic week, and I really couldn't ask for a better week, but I got to go tour his office. So in April I found out, and I knew where I was on the docket, but I ended up flying in August. So really only 4 months. Not a lot of prep time.
Yeah. Well, so I'm assuming then that was a busy 4 months, right? Because you still have to do all the training and get the time off from the hospital, right?
Yeah. Well, the time off, that's always the thing. So the time off is funny because I remember I had a new boss come. I work at Vanderbilt University. I also work at the Veterans Administration Hospital. And I remember I had a new boss come maybe a year before my flight. And I was sitting with him one day and I was like, we were chatting and I was like, look, I love rockets. Like, my goal is to go to space. I was like, one day I'm going to call you and I'm going to tell you I need a week off because I'm going to space. And he just kind of shrugged like, who is this? Yeah, whatever. So I remember calling him and I'm like, look, this is the time. I'm going to space. And he's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. So getting time off was not a problem because luckily everyone was excited to support me. And actually everyone at Vanderbilt had been with me when I interviewed with NASA in 2008. So my first set of interviews with NASA, I was training at Vanderbilt. And so all these people knew.
So you had a work party.
Yeah, we had a work. They knew this was a dream. So this didn't surprise anyone. The training is actually interesting. So there's a lot of build up to the flight, but it's really like your own things. Like, what are you going to take on the flight? Is there any science you can bring? Coordinating with people. I made it a goal to bring things for other people. And I was like, well, what can I bring that's lightweight and low space? So actually I told people, I was like, I will take a photo for you. Anyone who wants to give me a photo. So I ended up taking probably 100 photos for him.
That's awesome.
So someone gave me a photo of their dog. Someone gave me a photo of their cat. People gave a photo of their children, of course, but, so anything I could take. But the training actually isn't so bad, and this is the beauty of these suborbital flights. They make flight so much more accessible. So typically what it is for Blue Origin, you show up 3 days before your actual flight. And then on day one of training, you do what's a nominal flight. So you go through understanding the system, understanding what it's going to feel like. You sit through a simulation so you can understand the noises. You can understand what Capcom's going to say. Basically get a feel of this is a normal flight. Day two is what happens if something's abnormal. What if this is an off-nominal flight? And so then you go through all of that. You run through simulations where things are not going well. You need oxygen. You need to egress emergently. The escape system fires off. And then on day three, you fly.
Wow, that fast.
That fast. So if you look at the people they've sent, it's pretty incredible. They've now sent the youngest person above the Kármán line. They've sent the oldest person. They sent Ed. I think Ed Dwight might have been the oldest. He was one of the first original people picked for the astronaut corps back in the early days of NASA, but never got to fly. They've sent, most recently, someone in a wheelchair, so a wheelchair-using individual. They've sent people with, I think, partial visual impairments. So it is providing so much more accessibility for people to go up, which I think is very valuable, because you and I grew up in a time where you'd say, well, I'm not qualified to go to space.
Right.
You know, like, I can't do that. But with these suborbital flights, accessibility is growing, and our ability to have everyone experience the overview effect is growing, which I think is pretty awesome. To me, it's like, yeah, it would have been cool to be around in the 60s and see like the Apollo missions. But if there was a second era to be in, this would be it, because I think the commercial space industry and the partnership between private and public companies is just going to help elevate all of this and both grow the industry, get us to the moon, and allow people, regular people like you and me, to go to space.
Yeah. Well, tell me about, you mentioned the overview effect, right? So for listeners who don't know, can you tell us what that is, and then maybe tell us a little bit about how it affected you? What was your experience with it?
So the overview effect is a term coined by Dr. Frank White, who's a professor who's studied this since the 80s. And it's that idea that when you leave Earth, so astronauts, that something clicks in your mind. There's like a psychological shift in your brain that allows you to see the Earth as not just individual countries or you know, my town or my people, but that we're all interconnected, that there are no borders, that we really are just living on this one spaceship called Spaceship Earth, and that this is our home, so we have to protect it, that everything we know and have ever known in human history has been just right here, right?
Yeah.
And so it's this idea that things shift, and I'm honestly, I was listening to Victor Glover, who's going to fly with the Artemis program here in a couple of weeks, speak, and he said the one thing he's looking most forward to is seeing the Earth as a disk. Because if you think about it, we go to space on the space station. You know, we've done Hubble missions, we've done Polaris Dawn, and since the Apollo missions, we've been regulated or stuck with seeing the Earth from above, but not in its totality, not the whole, like, that picture of just like a circle, right?
Right.
And so they're going to be able to see that. Like, this is going to be the first time since the Apollo missions that we've had astronauts far enough to just see the circle of the Earth. I mean, that's mind-blowing to think. Like, if you look at any of those pictures that come from, like, deep space where it's looking, there's one picture, it's looking back at Mars, and then there's this little dot that's Earth in the distance. Like, we are very fortunate to be on this planet. So yeah, so the overview effect is how seeing the Earth from above really changes your perspective.
Yeah. How did it affect you?
So I went into space kind of expecting this. And now when you talk to Dr. White about the overview effect, he says he thinks that in the equation there's this piece of readiness. So I think I understood what it was. I was maybe more ready to accept the overview effect. And it definitely affected me from a sense of we are all in this together, and like it's crazy the things we do to each other in the name of countries or cultures. But I was also blown away by two things. One was what my friend Dr. Proctor, Sian Proctor, describes as Earth light, which is the reflection of light off the Earth onto you. You know, we look at moonlight and we know what that is, but this is that brightness. I was not prepared for the brightness and the vivid colors that you see when in space. Looking down at the Earth, it's like looking at a 4K TV, but like exponentially better. I mean, just the color scheme and the brightness, and there's just something very soothing and just peaceful about it. And I think that probably plays into the overview effect, though it's a different kind of experience, right? The other thing that blew my mind was just the darkness of space. And William Shatner, when he flew, described this. He just was really blown away by how dark it is. And it is not something I ever expected, because you can go from looking at the Earth, which is bright, beautiful, colorful, and very bright, not a little bright. And then you just look a little higher, and then it's just pure darkness. It's like looking into an inkwell. Mm-hmm. It's not like if you had a dark room and you lit a candle in one corner, that light kind of fills everything up.
Right.
It's literally the earth is super bright, and then there's a line, and it's just vast nothingness.
Wow.
Because it's a vacuum, and it's incredible. And to me, beyond just like looking at the earth, I was like, holy smokes, like there really is nothing up here. Like the universe is so vast.
Yeah.
And this is why we haven't made it to Mars yet, right? This is why we haven't been to the moon in so long, because yeah, you can see it. It seems close, but like these things are far apart.
Right.
And there's nothing in between. There's no McDonald's or Subway, or there's no rest stop between here and the moon. And to me, I think that was more impressive than just looking down at Earth, because you really are like, we do need to protect what we have.
Yeah. So you were is it second civilian doctor?
I was it depends. So I was the first physician on a commercial flight.
Okay.
Ever. Third cardiologist. So the Russians sent up Oleg, I want to say it's Asimov, but I might be wrong. So they sent up a cardiologist in the 70s and 80s. And then my mentor, Dr. Drew Gaffney, who I worked with at Vanderbilt, is a close friend and mentor. He flew up in 1991 with the shuttle as one of the first life science missions. And so I was the third one. And the cool thing is Dr. Gaffney has been my mentor ever since 2008 when I got that first interview.
Yeah.
He's been my supporter and cheerleader. And so for me to finally get to space was pretty cool. And when we came back, we exchanged patches, which was,
nice.
Kind of fun to do with your mentor. And as far as physicians, we now have more that have gone,
right,
which has been pretty cool. Dr. Gretchen Green, which here, was the first woman physician on a commercial flight. And there have been at least one other physician who's flown with Blue Origin, and I'm sure there's more coming down, though.
You were also the first Iranian, right?
I was the first Iranian man. So Anousheh Ansari flew with the Soyuz as a commercial astronaut about 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so she was the first woman and one of the first commercial astronauts. And then Jasmine Moghbeli is one of our NASA astronauts, and she's of Iranian descent, but I think she was born in Germany. Okay. So we've, I'm proud to say the Iranian people do, the women lead and the men follow, because they both were to space before I was and for longer.
Wow. How's it feel to have all all those accomplishments, those titles, so to speak, on your belt?
I mean, I think for me, the part that's probably the biggest or the most meaningful is the Iranian piece, because when I was a 4-year-old boy or a 6-year-old boy here in Huntsville, there was no Iranians that had gone to space, right? So as for many things, I think for kids to be able to see someone like them doing it, then they feel like it's possible. In anything, and that's, that can include religion, culture, race, your ability status. When Michi went up as someone who was in a wheelchair, I mean, that's amazing, right? Because now some kid is coming to space camp and saying, hey, I can do this. Yeah. So to me, that's been more meaningful for sure. The doctor thing is cool, but I'll take the Iranian thing. Awesome. Also, the first Metro Nashville Public School graduate, which to me actually is probably even equivalently as important as the Iranian thing, because since I've been back home, and I'm a graduate from Metro Nashville Public Schools, I've probably gone to like 10 different schools and talked to the kids.
Oh, that's great.
And it's just nice for them to be like, oh, we can graduate from here, and like, I want to be a doctor, I can do that. I want to be an astronaut, I can do that.
Yeah.
So
nice. What science experiment did you take?
There was a couple of things. Because my time was so short, wasn't able to take a big payload, because you have to do testing and standards and make sure that it all gets approved. I did wear a bio button, which is a heart monitor device to measure heart rate when I went up. I also was involved in 2 studies. One is called the SOMA study, which is run out of New York by Chris Mason. And what they're doing, and they've had a lot of individuals in the study. They had Inspiration 4, they had Polaris Dawn, they had, I think they ran the Scott and Mark Kelly twin study, the identical twin study, but they took blood before and after the flight to look for changes in basically genetic expression. So I was participating with them, and then there was a local study at Vanderbilt where they're also looking at genetic mutations, and so I gave them blood and participate in that too. And that's a longer-term study. The SOMA study was like a pre- and post-flight study. This study down at Vanderbilt, which is called the CHIVE study, is out many years, so they'll be collecting data going forward.
Did you take a picture? What picture did you bring?
That's a good question. What picture did I bring?
Oh, no. Was there anything else that you brought for yourself?
You know, most of what I brought were for other people. I felt like me going to space was what was important.
You took you.
I took me. Yeah, I took the experience. Part of that, and I'll be honest with you, so in 2017, we lived in Northern California, and the Tubbs fire came through. This was like the first big wildfire in Northern California. And so at 2 a.m., someone knocked on our door, some stranger. Hear the dog barking. I run downstairs, like, you got to get out of here. There's a fire. And I look out, and there's a fire.
Goodness.
So in 2017, we lost everything. We ran out with, the dog, my son, and not even I think I grabbed our wallets, but not our computers, not our wedding rings, anything like that. So I think after 2017, my, emotional attachment to things has diminished.
Sure.
Which is why I probably took more for other people. But I took Pokemon cards for my son. Which we have now framed.
Do you know which one?
It was a Pikachu and I think it's a Bulbasaur. But definitely he's going to be so upset if I don't have the right one. It's definitely a Pikachu. You got to take Pikachu. And then I took a bunch of Rumi cards. So Rumi is a Persian poet, an old Persian poet. And so I bought these cards that have one or two lines from poetry. And so I took a bunch of them to space to give to people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I took a bunch of patches and,
Sure.
The classic space stuff.
That's awesome. So what's next for you?
What's next? Well, after my flight, I went and worked for Blue Origin for 6 months, which was a life dream. So I was working as one of their crew member 7s, training. Ended up having to come back full-time to medicine for family reasons, but it was finally my entrance into working in aerospace.
Yeah.
And actually supporting people going to space is pretty cool because you see them come back and they're different people. Going forward, the big things for me is I'm going to keep taking care of people, right? I'm a doctor first and foremost. And I'm trying to share stories of inspiration, both trying to achieve hard dreams with people from all walks of life. So I'm talking to my kids' preschool class next week, to talking to people from large corporations. And I have a book that I'm writing that I've written and should hopefully come out in September that will go along with that. And really, it's just staying active and involved in the space industry in any way I can, whether it's advising companies, helping inspire people, or hanging out with you.
Amazing. Tell me, do you have any advice for a young person today who is thinking about a career that might involve taking them to space one day? What sort of advice would you give?
I think I have 2 pieces of advice. The first one is never be the one to tell yourself no. Meaning, if you want to do something, don't talk yourself out of it. Just take the time. You may not get there, but like you said earlier, what's the worst that could happen is nothing. If I didn't go to space before and I applied for NASA and I didn't go to space afterwards, nothing's changed except I didn't tell myself no. I let them tell myself no.
Yeah.
That's more just global advice. You want to be a rock star, or you want to be a football player, or you want to be an engineer with Blue Origin, just don't discount yourself. The other piece of advice if we're talking specifically about space, is that we're going to need all types of people in space. It's not the days of the right stuff anymore. If we have space stations up there, if we have lunar stations in the next 20 years, you're going to need machinists, you're going to need engineers, you're going to need doctors, you're going to need veterinarians because there's going to be lab testing on animals. You're going to need artists, you're going to need journalists, because honestly, I'm not going to be the best one to describe what it's like to go to space. You need someone who's got a creative mind and the ability to share that with everyone else. So do what you love, do it well, put in the effort, and then you'll find your way there.
Amazing. All right. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say or cover? Or
I don't think so.
All right. Well, if you feel,
want me to say? Come to space camp. Join us at U.S. Space and Rocket Center.
I've got a spaceship that I'm waiting for.